Transfer chaos is heating up again, and this episode is packed with headline-grabbing drama. A Barca legend could be on the verge of a sensational move to the Premier League, while Inter Miami are reportedly eyeing a shock swoop for Casemiro. Over in North London, Roberto De Zerbi is being lined up for the Tottenham job, raising the big question, can the Italian actually rescue their collapsing season? Meanwhile, Real Madrid are circling and could snatch one of Chelsea's key players right from under their noses. It's a whirlwind of rumors, ambition, and bold decisions, and that's just the beginning. Tottenham's situation, though, is where things turn truly dramatic. Just 9 months after lifting the Europa League trophy, the club now finds itself staring down the very real threat of relegation. 1 point, that's all that separates them from the drop zone. This isn't some exaggerated fan nightmare, it's the brutal reality of the Premier League table in April. The instability has been relentless, with 2 managers already dismissed this season. Thomas Frank departed in February, and Igor Tudor followed soon after, failing to win any of his 5 matches in charge. Despite his tactical reputation, Tudor always felt like a temporary fix, and predictably, that fix didn't hold. Now, Tottenham are moving quickly to change the narrative, entering talks with Roberto De Zerbi. Reports suggest a 5-year contract is already on the table, an extraordinary commitment for a club that could realistically be playing championship football within weeks. On one level, the thinking is clear: Spurs want to break free from constant managerial turnover and signal a long-term project. A deal of that length sends a strong message to players, fans, and the wider market that stability is finally the goal. But there's another side to this gamble. Offering such a long contract to a manager who hasn't even overseen a single match with the squad feels like a massive leap of faith. This is a club that has been cycling through managers at an alarming rate, and now it's suddenly promising half a decade of trust. It raises a fair question: is this bold vision, or reckless optimism? De Zerbi himself had different plans not long ago. After leaving Marseille, he intended to wait until the summer, giving himself time to carefully choose his next project, complete a full preseason, and properly implement his philosophy. Something, however, has clearly changed. Whether it's the scale of the offer, the allure of the challenge, or the financial package, rumored to make him one of the highest-paid managers in the league, he now appears ready to jump in immediately. That decision comes with enormous pressure. De Zerbi is known for building intricate, system-driven teams that require time, patience, and intensive coaching on the training ground. But right now, time is the one thing he won't have. This isn't about long-term development or tactical experimentation, it's about survival. Grinding out results, picking up points by any means necessary, and dragging the club away from the brink. So why take such a risk? Because the reward could be transformative. If he succeeds in saving Tottenham and then reshapes the team in his image, he won't just be another manager, he'll be the man who rescued the club at its lowest point. That kind of legacy carries far more weight than simply taking over a stable side in the summer. Of course, there's a darker possibility. If the gamble fails, that 5-year contract could quickly become a symbol of poor judgment rather than long-term vision. Fans who are currently dreaming of structured football and a clear philosophy might soon be desperate for something much simpler: just results, no matter how they come. Tottenham are reportedly pushing to finalize the deal before the squad returns from international duty, a sign of just how urgent the situation has become. Every day without leadership only deepens the uncertainty inside the dressing room. From a purely competitive standpoint, the move makes sense. But from De Zerbi's perspective, it would be wise to read every clause of that contract carefully, especially the one that outlines how it might all end. At Spurs, lately, that's been the most frequently used section of any agreement. And while all eyes are on North London, Real Madrid are quietly assembling what looks like a major summer rebuild. This isn't shaping up to be a minor adjustment, it feels like the beginning of something much bigger. According to Mundo Deportivo, a new name has surfaced on Real Madrid's scouting radar, one that could completely reshape the structure of their midfield: Enzo Fernandez. At the moment, Madrid's engine room feels balanced on uncertain ground. Eduardo Camavinga and Aurelien Tchouaméni are still judged more on their long-term promise than consistent present-day dominance. Arda Güler remains a developing project rather than a fully integrated solution. Federico Valverde brings energy and reliability, but even he cannot single-handedly replicate the collective intelligence once orchestrated by Toni Kroos and Luka Modric. What Madrid truly lack is a central figure, a conductor capable of linking every phase of play, someone who can quietly control the tempo without the system collapsing under pressure. Rodri continues to be the club's primary target, and that much is no secret. But Real Madrid have always operated with contingency plans, and when a move for a top priority becomes complicated, especially when it involves Manchester City and a player deeply rooted in their system, they look for equally elite alternatives. Enzo Fernandez fits that profile almost perfectly. A World Cup winner who has already endured the intense scrutiny at Chelsea, he has proven his ability to dictate matches, shoulder responsibility, and perform under relentless pressure. In a club where expectations never fade, those qualities carry enormous weight. The real question, however, isn't about Enzo's ability, it's about timing and circumstance. Chelsea did not bring him in as a short-term solution, he was meant to anchor a new era. Yet recent whispers suggest the Argentine wouldn't be entirely opposed to a change of environment. For Real Madrid, that kind of signal is often all they need. They are known for their patience, but the moment an opportunity appears, they act decisively and without hesitation. Still, the move isn't without its complications. Enzo is widely described as a natural leader, someone with presence, intensity, and the courage to take control in difficult moments. Historically, Real Madrid have elevated exactly that type of personality into icons. But strong personalities can also clash. In a dressing room that already includes figures like Vinicius Jr., Kylian Mbappe, and Jude Bellingham, adding another dominant character introduces not just tactical considerations, but emotional dynamics as well. At that point, it becomes less about formation and more about chemistry. Spanish media have even drawn comparisons between Enzo and Valverde, suggesting that combining their relentless energy, technical quality, and leadership could overwhelm opponents. On paper, it sounds like an ideal pairing. In reality, though, assembling too many high-intensity profiles in one system requires careful balance to avoid internal friction. Then there's the financial dimension. A deal worth around €100 million is more than just a transfer, it's a declaration of intent. At that level, there's no room for gradual development or patience. The expectation shifts immediately to results. And from Chelsea's perspective, losing a player of Enzo's stature would send a powerful message of its own. It would suggest that their rebuild is still searching for a clear identity, that even their central figure is not fully convinced by the project. Retaining him this summer could be just as significant as any new signing. Real Madrid, on the other hand, have long followed a simple rule: they don't just sign the best players when they're available, they move when those players begin to consider leaving. Meanwhile, at Barcelona, Robert Lewandowski's future has become one of the club's most delicate situations. His contract is approaching its final stretch, yet the conversation is far from a simple farewell. President Joan Laporta has made it clear he would like the Polish striker to stay for at least another season. It's a logical stance. Lewandowski arrived during a turbulent rebuilding phase, embraced the challenge, and continues to deliver at a high level, even if his minutes are now managed more carefully. However, football decisions are rarely driven by sentiment alone. Reports from Sport indicate that Barcelona are preparing a new one-year contract with a revised structure, lower base salary, supplemented by performance-related bonuses. The idea is straightforward: reduce guaranteed costs while rewarding tangible contributions like goals and appearances. Considering Lewandowski currently earns over €400,000 per week, this adjustment reflects the club's financial reality as much as its sporting direction. This doesn't mean Barcelona no longer value him. Rather, they are shifting away from paying for past achievements and focusing on present output. The key factor now is clarity. Lewandowski needs to understand his role under Hansi Flick, whether he remains a central figure or gradually transitions into a more limited, veteran presence within the squad. Complicating matters further are the alternatives available to him. Several clubs are prepared to offer longer contracts, better financial terms, or both. Interest from Italy includes Juventus and AC Milan, while Turkish sides have presented highly lucrative proposals. In Major League Soccer, Chicago Fire have shown particularly strong intent. One option appears off the table, however, the Saudi route, which the player himself is not pursuing. Barcelona's offer, in comparison, is modest: a one-year extension, no guarantees beyond that, and a significant portion of earnings tied to performance. It's respectable, but not the most attractive package available. Ultimately, the decision may come down to status. Lewandowski is fully aware that internal discussions about his future are ongoing. Reduced playing time and growing competition make it clear that his place in the starting lineup is no longer automatic. The message from the club is subtle but unmistakable: they still value him, but they are actively searching for a new long-term number 9. In simple terms, respect remains, but security does not. That leaves Lewandowski with a pivotal choice. Does he prioritize financial reward, long-term status, or continuity in an environment he already understands? The answer may ultimately depend on Flick. If the manager offers a clear and convincing role, a renewal becomes likely. If not, Lewandowski may decide that waiting for certainty is no longer worth the risk. At the same time, another major shift is unfolding elsewhere. Casemiro and Manchester United are now officially heading in different directions, marking the end of a significant chapter for both player and club. Manchester United's decision regarding Casemiro is no longer a matter of speculation, it's effectively the closing of a chapter. The club invested £70 million to bring the Brazilian in from Real Madrid back in 2022, expecting leadership, intensity, and elite-level consistency in midfield. Now, less than a few seasons later, they are preparing to let that investment quietly fade away. United have already confirmed that he will leave once his contract expires, shutting down any lingering talk of a renewal. The brief media whispers about a possible extension were quickly dismissed internally. The message from the hierarchy is clear: there will be no sentimental decisions this time. This season has laid bare a harsh reality. The qualities that once defined Casemiro, his sharpness, physical dominance, and reliability, have noticeably declined. Criticism has intensified, and the gap between expectations and performances has become impossible to ignore. At this stage, both sides seem to understand that continuing the partnership would serve little purpose. Despite the downturn, Casemiro's resume still carries enormous weight. A player with his achievements will never lack suitors. Clubs in Saudi Arabia are prepared to offer lucrative deals, while several European sides are willing to bring him in as an experienced presence. However, the most intriguing development has come from across the Atlantic. Inter Miami have aggressively entered the race, with reports confirming direct talks and even an initial official offer already submitted. At first glance, the move might raise eyebrows. Why would a Major League Soccer club target a player coming off a difficult spell at Manchester United? The answer lies in a broader vision. For Inter Miami, this isn't just about strengthening the squad, it's about amplifying their global brand. The club is building a project centered on star power and international appeal. Adding a figure like Casemiro to a dressing room that already includes Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez would significantly boost their profile and commercial reach. It's a strategy designed to guarantee attention, ticket sales, and continued dominance in the MLS spotlight. From the player's perspective, the appeal of Miami goes beyond finances. While offers from Saudi Arabia may be more lucrative on paper, Inter Miami provide a different kind of attraction. The squad is competitive, meaning Casemiro would still play a meaningful role rather than simply serve as a marquee name. At the same time, lifestyle considerations, particularly for his family, are becoming increasingly important at this stage of his career. In many ways, the traditional retirement map of football is shifting, and Miami currently sits at the center of that transformation. Meanwhile, over in Barcelona, Ferran Torres finds himself in a very different kind of spotlight. Publicly, the club continues to express confidence in him, presenting the Spaniard as an integral part of their long-term project. Behind the scenes, though, the picture appears far less certain. Torres has endured a difficult run, going 11 consecutive matches without scoring, a worrying stretch for a forward at a club with Barcelona's expectations. Despite this, the coaching staff continue to highlight his tactical intelligence and movement off the ball. That patience, however, may not last indefinitely. Reports suggest that internal discussions are already taking place regarding his future. Barcelona are under pressure to generate funds and reshape their attacking options, and keeping a forward struggling for goals is becoming increasingly difficult to justify. As a result, potential buyers are beginning to circle. From England, interest is building. Arsenal and Manchester United are both reportedly monitoring the situation, though their motivations differ. United are said to view Torres as a potential squad option, adding depth in case of departures elsewhere in their attack. Arsenal, on the other hand, are believed to value his off-the-ball movement and positional flexibility, qualities they feel could integrate well into their system. Torres does have prior experience in the Premier League from his time at Manchester City, though his market value has dipped since then. If a return to England doesn't materialize, there is also interest closer to home. Atletico Madrid could emerge as a viable destination, particularly given Diego Simeone's preference for hard-working, tactically disciplined players. Torres' willingness to press, track back, and contribute defensively aligns well with Atletico's style, even if his finishing remains a concern. Ultimately, his future will likely come down to whether Barcelona continue to prioritize patience or decide that a reset is necessary. Right now, the balance between potential and production is tipping in an uncomfortable direction, and that tension is beginning to shape the next phase of his career. As the situation around Ferran Torres develops, a familiar layer of football bureaucracy begins to complicate matters. Atletico Madrid may be interested, but they are not exactly operating with unlimited financial flexibility. Instead of offering a straightforward cash deal, they are far more likely to propose complex swap arrangements, something Barcelona are in no position to entertain. The Catalans need immediate liquidity to reduce their wage bill and fund the signing of a reliable striker. Creative deals might sound clever on paper, but they don't solve the club's most urgent problem, cash flow. Torres remains under contract until 2027, which gives Barcelona some leverage. Internally, there's a clear intention to extract as much value as possible from any potential transfer. That's why the public messaging has been so supportive. The club continues to emphasize their trust in the player, but it increasingly feels like a strategic move to maintain or even inflate his market value. Meanwhile, Torres himself is left operating under intense pressure. Every performance now carries a dual purpose, helping the team in the short term while simultaneously serving as an audition for potential buyers. Whether he finishes the season strongly or continues his goal drought could significantly impact how this story ends, either forcing clubs to pay a premium or allowing them to negotiate a cut-price deal. It's a situation that mirrors the realities of big business. Public praise often coexists with private calculations, and long-term belief can quickly shift when financial priorities take over. For Torres, the coming months will be decisive, not just for his role at Barcelona, but for the trajectory of his career. Elsewhere, another familiar pattern is beginning to unfold. When a Premier League club starts slipping toward relegation, the market reacts instantly. Wolverhampton Wanderers appear destined for the drop, and as expected, their key players are already attracting attention. João Gomes looks set to be one of the first to move. Despite public reassurances from the club, the reality is hard to ignore. Relegation almost always triggers a fire sale, and Gomes' valuation has already dropped significantly, from around €60 million to a far more accessible €45 million. For the player, the motivation is obvious. Ambitious footballers rarely want to spend a season in the championship, especially when top-tier opportunities are within reach. A move away now would allow him to maintain his trajectory at the highest level while also securing a more lucrative contract. Naturally, interest from major clubs has followed. Manchester United and Liverpool have both been monitoring the situation. The United appear to be treating Gomes as a secondary option, someone they will pursue only if their primary targets prove unattainable. At the same time, competition is intensifying. Napoli, Chelsea, and Newcastle United have all entered the race, each driven by their own midfield concerns. Chelsea, for instance, are reassessing their structure amid uncertainty surrounding Enzo Fernandez, whose future at the club appears less stable than initially expected. Newcastle face a different kind of anxiety, with growing fears that Sandro Tonali could be tempted away, forcing them to prepare contingency plans. In modern football, it often takes just one unsettled player to trigger a chain reaction, with clubs across the league scrambling to reinforce their squads. Tottenham have also shown interest in Gomes, but their involvement comes with a major caveat. Their own Premier League status is far from secure, making it difficult to attract emerging talents. Convincing a player to join a club fighting relegation is never easy, especially when more stable options are available elsewhere. In many ways, this is the harsh cycle of the football economy. One club's decline becomes another's opportunity. While some teams struggle to stay afloat, others move quickly to capitalize, picking off valuable assets at reduced prices. The key question now is not whether João Gomes will leave, but where he will land, and how long it might take before the cycle begins again at his next destination.